Hey everybody, welcome back. About a minute and a half ago or whatever, I ended video 1 for day 6 of Advent of Code. This is part 2 of day 6. In part 1 we implemented a grid that was 1,000 by 1,000 of light bulbs that can turn on, turn off, and toggle based on a bunch of instructions that Santa sends over. Part 2, we've got the same set of instructions, but it turns out he wants apparently we've mistranslated it from ancient Nordic Elvish. So each of the lights in our light grid should have individual brightness controls. So the lights are going to start at a brightness of 0, and if we get a turn on message or a turn on instruction, then we're going to increase the brightness of those lights by 1, and if we get a turn off, then we're going to decrease the brightness of the lights by 1, but we can't go below 0. And if we have toggle, then it means we're going to increase the brightness by 2. So the same kind of grid pattern thing works. So I think our grid is probably fine. It's our light bulb that needs to change to take or to do different things with those instructions. And the question asks what is going to be the total brightness of all of the lights in the grid after following Santa's instructions. So in that case, our grid does change a little bit, right? Our grid needs to be able to tell us how bright the total brightness of all of the lights are. So let's go back to the grid spec. Actually, you know what? I will be right back. Alright, there we go. Sorry about that. I was getting my code committed so that everything stays how it should be, except for I screwed that up. I'll be back. And we're back again. Amazing how quick I can fix problems when I can pause videos. It seems like I'm an absolute genius that way. It's super neat, time travel and all that. Alright, so I've got all my code checked in. That's what I wanted to do, but I ended up switching over to the wrong branch of code. Notice that when I was doing the video. So let's get going. We have to create our light bulb to be able to track brightness. As far as I'm concerned on this, because it's a throwaway bit of code, rather than write a brand new light bulb, let's stick with the one we have and give it some functionality where it will keep track of its brightness and whether or not it is separate from all this. Then if the on and off is separate, I don't really care because our grid is, we're going to ask our grid one question, whether it's how bright it is or whether it's on or off. They're fake lights, right? They're not really real. But let's create our grid. So phpspec describe day 6 puzzle 2. Let's try that again with a slash. And we'll run our code. Create that puzzle. And I'm going to start with what I had before in puzzle 1. So same kind of pattern, right? We're going to create our light, create our grid, create our parser. We're going to loop over each line. We're going to parse the lines into instructions. None of that changes. The only thing that's going to change is instead of get lit light count, we're going to get total brightness. And that is a function that does not exist on our grid. So we'll go back to our grid spec and we're going to make it exist, or we're going to test to make sure it exists. So we'll do public it can say it can get total brightness, and we'll do light interface, and this is the other part that needs to change, and we'll get some we'll get some behavior on here. So we'll do light get brightness, and we'll say we'll return let's say 25, right? So we've got 100 lights, and this get total brightness should be 2500, And we'll go ahead and do another set of tests in here. We'll say, we'll change the behavior of the light. We'll say light get brightness will return 10, and this get total, copy and paste, get total brightness will return 1000. We'll run that, and we should get prompts to update our interface, and it now says, hey, your light is no bueno. So we'll go back over the light. We'll say, hey, we know we don't implement it. Add the stub. Now we implement our interface, even though we're not doing anything with it. And now we get total brightness. And we need to make get total brightness do what it ought to do. So open up grid. Should have a new get total brightness down here. And it's going to be very, very, very similar to get lit light count. So I'm going to copy that function out. Paste that in there. We're going to rename this variable. So we've got brightness. Okay. And instead of brightness plus plus, and instead of checking if it's on, we're going to increment it by however much the brightness is supposed to be incremented by. So we'll do brightness plus equals this grid x y get brightness. So we're going to ask each light bulb what its brightness is, and then return the total brightness. Let's run that one. What did I do there? Not a valid class name. No kidding. Why does it think that I'm asking it for a class name there? This grid XY get brightness. Get brightness. Alright, I'm not liking this new trend of pausing all the time to figure stuff out, but I'm going to pause so you don't have to sit here and listen to me noodle over what's going on, because this is yet another new error that I have not seen. Alright, so I figured out a workaround. I figured out maybe what the problem is. It might be a bug. It might be I'm doing something stupid. But what I ultimately found out is for some reason when I've got these two lines in here, so I'm doing this test for 25 and getting 2500, and then I do another test with 10 and trying to get 1000. For whatever reason, if that's in there, then it somehow passes in this string of nothing into its thing that checks for invalid class names or finds a class to say that it wants to build it. So I don't know what the real cause is yet. I'll see if I can figure it out later, report back. But if I get rid of this and run it again, everything is fine and happy, and we've got no problems. My guess is if I put the same stuff that I just cut out into another test, which maybe I should have done in the first place, who knows, but if I cut that out and put it in a new test, it will probably work just fine. Actually, let's go ahead and do that. So it can get other total brightness, light interface light, we'll pass that in. We're going to tell it what we want it to do. Light get brightness will return 10. This get total brightness should be 1000. Let's run it. And it doesn't have any problem with that. It's just for some reason, if I put those two together, they don't get along so well. And I get, oh fine, it gets along just fine there. So very possible that I was just missing like a typo or something. I don't know. If you see what it was and want to enlighten me, let me know in the comments or Twitter or something. I would appreciate it. Alright, so we've now got our total brightness on our grid can be got, but we need to update our light, right? So let's close out all of this mess, close everything, open up the light, and we've got get brightness is not a thing yet, and no tests on get brightness are a thing yet either. So again, according to the new translation in ancient Nordic Elvish, turn on is going to increase it by 1, turn off is going to decrease it by 1 with a minimum of 0, toggle is going to increase it by 2. So we want to go ahead and add some tests for that as well. So it will get brighter with turn on instruction. Before I do that, let's make sure the brightness is 0, so it will be brightness 0 to start. Alright, this get brightness should be 0. Alright, and we'll go ahead and run that and make sure our brightness is 0. And that's our pending one. We haven't written that one just yet. The light needs to have a brightness of 0. Alright, let's do that. We'll do return 0. Hooray, it's all happy except for we've got a pending example that will break that one, so we'll make it go. So this turn on and this get brightness should be 1. And we'll go ahead and do it a couple more times just to make sure that it's continuing to add up. So then second time 2, and third time 3. Run that and it fails. It expected 1, but it got 0, and so it's stopping right here, right? So light, get brightness. Let's see if this works. I'm going to toggle this, tell it I want to extract this to a parameter. I want to call the parameter brightness. Nope, that's not what I wanted. I want to extract it to a property. Property. Is there a thing? Variable? This brightness. No. Variable constant field. Field. That's the name of the thing I want. I want a field. There we go. Brightness. And it should be protected. We'll get a field declaration. And we're going to initialize it. So all in one shot. Bam. Brightness equals 0. That means that test didn't fail. Our 0 test didn't fail. But our turn on needs to bump up our brightness by 1. So we'll do this brightness plus in the turn on, and that works. Let's go back to light spec, and we need some new tests. So it will get less bright. Actually, it will not get. It will not go lower than 0 brightness. Okay, so we'll do this turn off, this get brightness should be 0. Put that in there twice just for good measure right there. So everything's working right now, right? Because turn off doesn't do anything, and we start at 0. So not the best test yet, but it does become a more valuable test later on. So we'll say it will get less bright with turn off. All right, so we need first to give it some brightness. So we'll call turn on, and then we'll check our brightness, which is going to be 1. Actually, I'm not going to check it. We already know that. We have plenty of tests up above that do that. So we'll do this turn on, and then this turn off. And now get brightness should be 0. Right? So this test should fail. All right, there we go. And the reason it fails is because turn on does nothing, right? So if I do, this is where that previous test becomes more valuable. So on turn off right here, we'll do this, brightness, minus, minus, and we'll run it. And now the other test, it will go no lower than 0 brightness, fails because it will go lower than 0. I didn't do any checks to make sure that brightness doesn't get below 0. So let's say this brightness, we'll do this brightness, and this is one of a bajillion different ways that you could do this, equals a max value between 0 and this let's see, brightness, come on, keyboard's acting slow here. This brightness minus 1. So whatever's the bigger number between those two, between 0 and brightness minus 1, is what we're going to get. And so in that case, oh, and I got to get rid of the other one because I don't need that anymore. There we go. So now this brightness, the turn off part works. We now need to ensure that toggle will increase things by 2. So do public function, it will get 2 points, I guess, brighter for toggle. All right, this toggle, this get brightness should be 2. Copy that, paste 4. There is no maximum brightness. All right, and it fails, and our toggle, this brightness plus equal 2. Run it, everything's happy. Our puzzle 2 exists. It's saying get total brightness, and we'll change this bit of wording so it should be the right thing, total brightness, and we'll run our thing. So runner day 6, puzzle 2. All right, as before, we're doing even more than checking if it's on and off. The last time it took a few seconds to run. This time it'll probably take slightly longer than that because we're keeping track of a bunch of integers. We're doing some extra checks to make sure we don't have brightness that goes below 0. All that kind of fun stuff. So we'll give it just a second here to come up with the answer. But according to my puzzle, the answer should be 17,836,115. So if we get that, then I think we can call it a day. So as I'm recording this, it is now the 18th of December. This is supposed to be day 6. So now I'm falling even more behind. Sorry for that, but I do have real work and stuff to do. But if you like the videos, tell your friends, click like. I really appreciate it. It seems like it's helpful for a few people, which is all I'm looking for, really. So that is the number I said, 17,836,115. That is the correct answer, which means we've built the brightness the right way, done the tests, everything else. It's all good. And we're good to go. So thank you all for joining, and we'll see you back, I hope, for day 7. See you later.